I'm trying to make sure everything's working here. There's some issues with OBS just now, so can you guys hear me okay? See me? Everything working? I got a corrupt file in my OBS. I just had to reinstall it. So awesome. Cool. How's everyone doing today? Let's pull up some charts. Everyone likes charts. All right. Oh, good point. Yeah, that would not have worked. Okay, cool. Yeah, everything's all set up now, I think. Make sure this piece of shit's working. Yeah, we're good. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I was dicking around with that, so real quick, let me send a notification to the Discord just so people know the stream's up. That's always weird. Paste. All right. I am ready to go, I think. Yeah, I'm feeling a lot better. Thank you, C. Santos. Good afternoon, Simp for Stick Boy. All right, which crazy Reddit theory do you guys want me to dispel first? What's up, Eddie? Bezos, Blockbuster, Sears, and Toys R Us. The one about the freaking zombie stocks. Okay, so there's a lot of reasons for these like Q listed OTC stocks to move. So they put a Q in the ticker to imply that it's going through bankruptcy or restructuring. Um, I think some of them were being delisted as of yesterday. So that would be a reason that they moved. Other reasons they could have moved, they possibly had asset holdings in one of the meme stocks, and so could have run in January. You know, it's not uncommon for large corporations to own shares in their competitors. Sean Daniels, thank you so much for re-up and Pigeon Whale, dude. I appreciate that, man. He'll be in here in a second. That's so weird that doesn't show up in the chat. I saw the picture of Keith Gill. I said T plus two. I didn't think you'd take it so literally. Bezos isn't shorting fucking GameStop, all right? I mean, he probably is, but he doesn't know about it. I kind of covered that on stream. It's no. He's not directly like, you think he's like going out to, his financial advisors and being like, I need you to short GameStop? Very unlikely. Possible, but unlikely. It'd be cheaper and less risky to just buy out the company. And that's something really only you guys have power to put a stop to as part of the community. Like, I can go out and say things, and 50% of people will be like, oh, that makes sense. And the other 50% of people are going to be like, oh, he's a fucking shill. Um, but it's really like you guys that are like a part of the community that are the ones that are responsible for turning that kind of like bullshit sentiment around. So, you know, vote with your upvotes and downvotes, speak with your voices in the comments, because if anything like that, it is a much greater influence than anything I can say. So they can keep their short positions with a worthless stock. I mean, yeah, they can, but those short positions are, worthless. So they're not going to cover shorts on a bankrupt stock. I think that's one of the big uh, misleading bits of information that seems to be floating around, is that they're somehow going to come out and cover these short positions, and that's not the case. They no longer have a responsibility to cover those positions. And if the stock's trading at 20 cents, it's not affecting their margin at all, right? I'm sure fucking Bezos has money in Citadel. Why would you not hire this massive hedge fund who handles everyone's money and is super successful to handle your money? But that's the only way in which Bezos would be involved, right? And that's kind of like what you expect from this whole situation with like this transfer of wealth. It's because people like that invest in hedge funds. Those hedge funds take on risky plays, and then we take that money. We don't take all their money. It's not like Bezos is going to be broke after GameStop, goes to the moon, but he'll lose some money. They all will, a little bit each. I sold SHLDQ last week. I want to jump off a bridge. Why? Wait, did you own it before all this bullshit went down? Did you like that post I linked you in? You weren't supposed to look at it. Was it the one on Dillionaires? I didn't look at it. I figured it was something that would just like upset me because you said it would, and so I didn't look at the post. I trusted you, Dettles. Is it Tettles? I hope it is. I hope that's how it's pronounced. CEO, entrepreneur, born in 1964. Yes. Yes, he is. FTD warehouse. It's just. Why not affect margin if they're unrealized gains? It doesn't affect their margin because the stock's fucking worthless. So they don't have to go cover that, right? They don't have to go cover their short position as the stock was being delisted as of yesterday, right? They're no longer allowed to be bought or sold. Also, remember that like these fucking short positions were created before GameStop was ever shorted. And it's my own personal belief that, based on some of the research I've been doing, that Citadel didn't move into a short position on GameStop until much more recently. Citadel was not like long short GameStop. They're short as fuck on GameStop, but not for a long time. Not like Melvin. Well, okay, so assume that we didn't have the selling on this last cycle, right? The ETF rebalances and the share offering, which ended up being like 7.2 or 3 million shares. Um, if we hadn't had that, we would have probably traded right around where we're at now. Like we would have had the 5 million, and then um if this was the ETF rebalancing, this one and this one. So these are the two ETFs. And this is, net shares sold short, and then this is the share offering. So just the share offering, our price would have stayed pretty level, maybe dropping to like 180 or a little below 200 before we began this run up, right? Um, and that's because apes hold the floor. We can even see the increase in our VWAP here, the weighted VWAP, where, we bought in even harder after the share offering, right? And larger institutions probably moved into GameStop around here, like Renaissance Tech. And, we know that Vanguard bought more. And so, we would have started this cycle from this point instead of from down here at like 151, 150, right? And so, we'd be trading at like 250 right now, at least, maybe 300. So assume that nothing happens this cycle. We test 350 again, and there's no share offering. There's no ETF rebalancing, right? I don't think we'd see the price slip below 250, right? And then if we can keep that up until the next one, we know kind of where we need to be on that push to go to the moon, right? So, if December rolls around and we're trading at $500, $600 a share, it's not going to take a lot to push us into the short squeeze. I don't want to upset you, but Win Secret DD, I'm still waiting on stuff. There's still like other cycles that I'm watching to try to find the ones, because multiple correlate with GME, right? And so until they're all over, I can't really determine which ones are the ones that are affecting it. I do not think it's swaps, and there's a few reasons for that. The primary reason I don't think it's swaps is because swaps involve multiple parties, and Citadel has access without a doubt, and um, you know, not immunity, but exemption from Reg Show, that allows them to create and manage the derivative all within their own umbrella without ever, telling any of the big banks about it or anything like that. And I feel like those strategies would be much more beneficial than, having, public trade data out there that, we could research, right? But, I guess the counter argument to that would be that they didn't have a lot of time when January came around to figure shit out, and so maybe they made some mistakes. But if I was in their position, I would not have used swaps. or at least not the type of swaps that are like Korean's currently talking about. And so there are other cycles. Like that's how I predicted the run that last Tuesday, like perfectly, right? This was the quarterly options rollover. Um, and this doesn't really have a lot to do with swaps. But I knew we'd run that day because of it, as we did, here and here. Oh, no, maybe I can just write on my own face. Hold on. There we go. T Dettles. Okay, fine. Yeah, I mean, even if like Blockbuster or Sears ran up to $1 a share, right, and they were short the entire float, they could handle that for a day. Like it's not a big deal for them. It's $1 billion, right? That's something you guys are gonna have to get used to more, especially as you get more and more into trading and looking at these. Like maybe I think it just takes time, but you've got to realize that like a million, 10 million, $100 million, this is not a lot of money. This is a very, very small amount of money relative to the amount of money that moves through the financial markets. A billion is not that much, right? It takes 1,000 of those to make a trillion. And, think about it that way, is like the DTCC has, 60 trillion in partner assets, right? The future cycle does close on September 17th. Delisted OTC stock trade somehow wrecked MOASS? How would that have wrecked MOASS? Can you go a little more in depth with that, Cool Daddy? During forced liquidation, when the accounts are in control of the brokers, is it really a computer that is executing and handling the closing out of the position? Yeah. In a sense, I mean, they'll have control of it, right? They can dial in the parameters on the fly. Usually, like in my experience, like algorithm stations like that at brokers have someone like at the helm, right? Like someone's monitoring that algorithm constantly, adjusting it as needed for changes in market sentiment, price volatility, things like that. So it is algorithmic, but it will be in a controlled sense. Will it be general between holders versus a computer algorithm? I mean, yeah, kind of, but that algorithm will also, there's a time frame for them to buy up those synthetic shares, uh, not 24, and settle those accounts, right? And so the algorithm, like they need to use an algorithm because they need to blow through the price improvement and the synthetic shares quickly. And the algorithm will be best at incentivizing people to create that supply for them. What happens if we fail the test at 350 again? I mean, we probably drop back down to around 300. And as long as there's no shares sold, we should stay at that level for the next couple months. If we break through, which I highly suspect is going to happen, um, then, sky's the limit. Not even. You think it will be sitting at 500 share and not already be in MOASS? It can happen. I mean, we know that like Citadel Point 72 and Susquehanna and Melvin, with their assets under management together, can theoretically, without margin, sustain a position of at least $1,000 a share. Um, and with margin, like $4,000 a share. I mean, it'll hurt them really, really bad, but they could sustain it up to that point. Don't I have angry eyebrows? I should use leverage options to build my position. That makes sense. Don't get me wrong. If like Ryan Cohen announces that they're releasing shares at the shareholders meeting, I'm gonna straddle the fucking earnings like I would any other stock, right? But I'm not gonna sell shares. So I'll get my puts and calls set up for earnings and then see which way it goes. Either way, I'm just taking money from Citadel, right? So what do you think your predictions went wrong this week, and how are you adjusting for the next week based on it? Well, I think this week the biggest issue with the predictions, I mean, these price model predictions are modeled after historical price action, right? And the biggest issue that we had was we never really broke that resistance. We had the opportunity to on Tuesday, and we did technically break it, but there was nothing there to sustain it. There was no buy pressure, no FOMO, nothing. So had we broken that, our price action probably would have looked very much like this for the rest of the week. But because we didn't and it got defeated, we ended up, testing again the next day and then kind of trending down as expected into the end of the week. So even though the upper bounds of the expected price action were never realized, the lower bounds were kind of expected, right? I mean, these are an estimate. But I did expect to like kind of test 250 even if we did break out on the low end and kind of just trail off to the downside as they attempted to regain some max pain at the end of the week. And they worked a little harder at it than expected. We had a little less buy pressure than expected. I weighed this on like 5 million volume a day. It's very hard for me to individually change the volume for each day. So even though like our volume's generally higher in the beginning of the week and then kind of peters out, I can't adjust for that. At least not on here or anything. Like I could do it, but I wouldn't be in like a format that I can present. So I hope that makes sense. But next week I'll be, uh, toning down my volume, maybe even a little more. Although I expect, regardless of what the predicted price action says, I expect us to kind of go through the fucking roof next week. Sure, there's a DD out there on subreddit regarding the new SEC regulation, and I only really skimmed it. I'm sure on Tuesday someone will ask about it again. Okay. I'm sure someone will bring it up to me over the weekend, if not. Is there a risk of liquidation being spread out over a long time to minimize the price increases due to the extraordinary circumstances during MOASS? No, they're not going to give them that much time, right? Because that's ultimately up to the lender. Um, like the lender can give them time, the SEC can give them time, but they're not going to get a lot of it. They're going to want it over and dealt with as quickly as possible before it presents risk and interference to the rest of the market, right? Which it may well anyway. Promoting rational thinking when sensationalist garbage pops up in Superstock. Be warned, you'll get slammed with aggressive comments and be accused of being a shill. I know. I can't tell you now because I have to go figure it all out, and that's like takes some time.
Hey dude, welcome to the Dillionaires. We ain't no gorillionaires, cause Andrew Mo Money sucks.
Thank you for re-upping Chick Contender Daddy. I appreciate that, man. Or becoming a Dillionaire? Were you a Dillionaire already? I think you were. You see the Reddit post about market maker signals opinion? Oh, that's horseshit. I saw the video, I've seen the post. Yeah, so I'll go into that right now. That guy's a complete fucking nut job. He's describing standard order book flow. He probably has like higher level 2 data. Like if you pay for really good level 2 data, it'll have an algorithm that'll tell you the next price point. But basically like you don't need it. You can see it. So if you have an order book that looks like let me draw it in a format that's like a little easier to understand. So we have like 10, 10, 10. What's your ask? We have like 90, like 326, 5, 400. All right, so this is your ask, and then whatever. This is the price right here, not the bid. So when a block order comes in of 100 shares, these are removed, right? And this is the next price point. Whatever the price is here is where the price of the stock will settle. And then, after that, 300, more than, so the next 2 block orders will do nothing. The next block order, or the 4th block order, will then move the price up to this $400 range. And that's all he's describing. He's definitely a nut job. There's no, like, any market order or dark pool dump or anything like that will affect that. It only works on stocks that have a super tight bid ask and shitloads of volume, and then you can kind of see where it's going to go. But most people's level 2 data is not really complete enough, so you really have to pay for like high end level 2 data, which can cost anywhere from, I've seen some pretty good ones around the $40 mark, but most of the decent ones have cost around like $300. And you can pay up to 20,000 a month for it, if you want to like open up your own high frequency fund, or you're like handling, like you're running algorithms. Hard for 3 days before the roll date. 9/9 is the roll date. Friday was the first of the 3 days. Has something changed? Will we run Tuesday? I expect we will. Naxos. That's what I expect for this week. I expect us to run very, very hard Monday and Tuesday. Or Tuesday and Wednesday, sorry. All the way up into earnings. Possibly in the pre-market. What do you think is the reason for the volume pullback? Okay, so we only have one buyer, right? Colden. Or Chris, sorry. And if that buyer stops buying, the volume pulls back. It's pretty simple. So the shorts covered this week, but not as aggressively as expected, right? They covered these FTDs that they need to cover for this cycle. The majority of which hit on the options rollover date, quarterly options. Um, now they need to buy for the next roll. So I expect we'll see something like this, possibly a breakout here into earnings, and then earnings are going to be the pivotal point in this week. Either, I my personal preference is Ryan Cohen says nothing and, doesn't release any fucking shares. That's all I really expect of him or want. It'd be nice if he, says some positive things. I don't think there's anything negative he's going to say, so I'm not really worried about that. So mostly it hinges on if shares are released or not, and then in what quantity. Because if they release like 2 million shares or 1.5 million shares, which is the amount I think they can, like it could just drop to like 300 and then bounce. Yeah, if they release like 1.5 million shares and some like solid forward leading projections, it might just rip, you know? And that's why I'm going to straddle it because at this point I'm so invested in GameStop that if I don't make some money from them pushing it down, it really like hurts having all my capital tied up in it like that. So I'm going to straddle it and see which way it moves. Because there's really it's no way of knowing how that's going to turn out right now. Oh yeah, it's a super unusual level of squeezes and pump and dumps, but that's because when COVID happened, the shorts went ape shit, right? And so they just shorted everything because they had tons of money from the market correction and they're net short hedge funds, right? So they just short everything they could get their hands on that they think might not survive the pandemic, right? But is writing a put shorting the stock? No. A cash secured put, a CSP, is a bullish bet. So, say we're trading right now at like 202.75, right? And you wrote a weekly CSP for 200. That means that if the price goes below this and you get assigned, you're willing to buy 100 shares of GameStop for $200, right? But if the price goes up, you simply collect your premium and walk away. And so this is a bullish bet because you're betting that the price won't go below 200. You can't directly short the stock unless you're buying in the money puts. So if you buy an in the money put with a delta of 1, right? Or close to 1, you're effectively shorting the stock by 100 shares. Oh, Jean-Claude Van Damme, it's really simple actually. It's not how I make money. The price prediction I'm using for GameStop is simply based on the previous run and weighted for what the volume I think will be. So they're just like another technical indicator, but just kind of like customized for GameStop. Oh wait, I need to close this and reopen it. Damn it. I'm not sure if we gotta figure out. I'm excited and nervous, Hank, about earnings. We'll see how it goes. Are there any signals we can look out for? We may not see them. I mean, a lot of that's going to be going on behind the scenes right off the bat. And so it could be seamless on our end. It may not be. We may see gaps in the buying. Um, we may get like a NYSE halt for an extended period of time until it starts moving again. But we'll be informed of the reasons for the halt. So it won't be, like they'll just stop trading the stock for like a day and not tell us what's going on, right? The easiest counter argument to the Bezos thing is it would have been easier to just buy the company for $4 a share. It'd be easier to buy the company for $200 a share. McDavis. Amazon has the money to buy GameStop, without a doubt. They would only need to purchase a controlling interest, and that wouldn't be too hard for them. My bank blocked my monthly payment, said it was Netflix. What the fuck? Well, thank you for re-upping that. I appreciate it. Questions about selling CSP on Apple. You mentioned doing it with great success. Would CSP wheeling Apple be a good play currently, or too much risk given the potential market crash? So most of the ones I did on Apple were weeklies, so those carry a lot less risk as far as a market crash is concerned. But yeah, Apple's a great stock to if you get really, really familiar with its movements, you can make a lot of money, especially around earnings. Um, I did it for a long time, and then I ultimately stopped because I saw better opportunities to make money elsewhere. And I was very uncomfortable using the amount of margin that I was using in order uh, to make those profits. And so, yeah, I think it's a good place if you have the capital to do it, to start. But I mean, really learn Apple like inside and out before you begin doing it. Tesla is another stock that I've traded really, really heavily in the past. Nvidia's I've traded on occasion. What are some other big ones? I traded the SPY a lot, and Apple moves very similarly to that. So, um, yeah, those are all actually pretty solid choices for CSP. Like you won't make the money off IV that you would other places, but you're really in it for the theta. So expect flat. I wouldn't expect flat. I would expect a directional movement of a momentous directional movement. It's just the question is what direction post earnings. Yeah, all my options are 917 currently. I have 80 contracts that expire on 917 right now. How do you see the percent probability of a split announcement? I mean, GameStop could do with one, but I really feel like it could if they're cooperating with the SEC, I don't think they'll do it. I would say the odds aren't super great. Maybe like 25% chance of them issuing a split. And even if they did, it wouldn't split till much later in the month or next month. It would probably split in October. Have a year, my pickle friend. I had a year. Is that have? I'm expecting a hello from the CEO. That's about it. That's all I want. He can come out, say hi, and then they can just go fuck off till the squeeze is over. We don't need them saying anything that the media can twist, and we don't want them releasing shares. If they don't do either of those things, we're set. More money, Colden. They have a business to run. Businesses tend to run well when they have shitloads of liquid assets. Also, why should they not make any money off the shorts? And there's good cause to release shares. I don't think they'll do it again because it dilutes Ryan Cohen's position and he hasn't bought back in for the remainder of what he's allowed to buy at this point. So you straddling with the same strike and expiration, right? Yeah, probably. Actually, no. The call side, I would go a little out of the money on probably. So whatever X price is that we approach earnings at, I would probably go like $5 out of the money here and $5 out of the money to the downside. So for the put and the call. Because if GameStop moves post earnings, it's going to move a lot. And I don't really need to pay that extra like $500 to be right on the line. Because I don't expect it to trade sideways. Otherwise, I get like an iron condor, like try to play the theta. Do you think a short week will impact the movement as well, sort of condensing the action? It could, yeah. Girk is a concrete hedge fund. I knew it. What the fuck? MOASS probability percentage? I would say, given the gamma ramp situation, it's like above 60% right now going into this. If they have to buy hard, and especially if they've condensed that buying into 2 days, that gamma ramp, even though they were able to bleed some of it off yesterday, that gamma ramp is still there and represents almost the size of the float in shares that need to be hedged. In addition to the fact that, 200% of the float is locked up by us, and then another 200% or 200+% of the float is locked up by shorts. You're dealing with quite a lot of shares that need to be purchased, right? Can you explain what you think will run on 9.8 and 9.9? Those are the last 2 days for the futures rollover. And I think we'll run on 9.7 and 9.8. If your calls go in the money from 9.17, do you plan on exercising them or selling to close? I'm going to sell them. Holy Saber. Unless like we MOASS, and then I'll exercise them. But even that, I'd probably only exercise some of them. I have plenty of shares. I used most of those gains from like Tesla and AMD to exercise the in the money contracts I already had. So, yeah, I'm not really concerned at this point with increasing the size of my position. So much as I am just making more money. I think my long position's more than sufficient. I don't think they make that distinction, Max. If they split the stock, it's just a synthetic share will become worth, 4 shares. A synthetic share, as long as you're holding it, is real in every sense, except its ability to satisfy a share borrower agreement. It's real in every other sense, though. It's just a share that is part of the float that shouldn't be, right? So in writing an option, is it something where you should look at which strikes have the most volume OI in order to get a buyer, or do MMs also buy them? The MMs will buy them. I mean, look at Moonwind selling his 205 Cs right before close, right? Like he's still able to sell them even though there's like 5 minutes left on the day, and he might only get like a few bucks per contract, but like it's free money essentially. Whole chat. It takes time, and I have to use like other programs. It's not that it's super secret, it's just a pain in the ass. And also probably useless on any other exchange traded stock. They only kind of work on GameStop because of its predictability. Thanks, Mr. Finch. The VOD will be on later if anybody can't hang or wants to go do other shit with their weekend. I believe they had 10 million in the offering that they were exercising, and I think they've used 8.5 of those. So at least them with 1.5 left since the share buyback. But I have to dig into that more, and I just haven't had time to go through like all their 8Ks and shit and find it. But 1.5 million share offering wouldn't do much. Like that wouldn't really affect the price very much. At most, maybe it can dip us like $15 if they sell it really fast. If they don't sell it quickly, it may not. It may just keep us trading sideways for like a week after earnings. I'm only really concerned if they release like 3 or more million shares. More than 3 million, I would be a little more concerned with. And not really concerned. It's just it's a delay, right? Like I know the delay it represents now. Um, my late can't do time zones a little bit, but it's okay. We're only like an hour into this. Not even. One four split confirmed. Surely they haven't burned through that much money. I mean, it depends on how fast they want to turn the company around, right? Don't get me wrong. For a long-term investor in GameStop, them doing this now, raising capital and expending that capital is beneficial, right? Because we're moving into a period of inflation, possibly hyperinflation, and pricing in those assets and those contracts now represents a ton of value moving forward. So I can understand the reasons they want the money if they're that aware of, market conditions, which they should be. I mean, they should have, some people working for them that are on top of that. I hope. If EPS is positive, wasn't our last earnings like negative 66? If EPS is positive, my mind would be absolutely blown. But yeah, we'd fucking go to the moon. That's super fucking bullish. I like it. Estimated to be at 0.660. Thanks, Nano. I'm going to try to. I'm not really off Monday. I'm going to be off tomorrow. The rest of today and tomorrow. What I'm actually interested in, 60% is like a pretty good chance. What I'm really interested in is can they defeat the hot price at higher price points? Right? That's something that would really add a lot of relevant data for me and like the research I'm doing is if they can defeat the price at if they can defeat the price at 400, that changes a lot of the parameters I've been looking at. And that could be useful for, the next run, which could be potentially sooner. These cycles aren't a guarantee. I can say that much about them already. I mean, yeah, the media could twist it. Damage it. Doing anything nice for the holiday? No, probably not. Sleep. I haven't slept in a long time. I gotta patch my roof, which is gonna be a pain in the ass. When you say MOASS 70% probability, do you mean by a certain time or at all? Sorry, I just joined. By a certain time, Blueberry. Do you think GameStop intentionally picked this earnings date to coincide with the futures rollover cycle to apply more pressure? That's part of the things I'm waiting on for my DD. Is their timing of their earnings. It is relevant. We'll see. Oh, don't worry about liking the stream. It doesn't fucking matter. It's a private stream anyway. I'm sure like when I open it to the public 2 weeks from now, it'll get plenty of likes. How likely is it the GameStop purpose? Okay, I kind of answered that, I think, already. For MOASS, should be watching the stock from pre-market to aftermarket. You should be, especially if you have a decently sized position and you plan on having a lot of exits. Especially as we approach the peaks, you're really gonna want to be up from 4 a.m. Like if you're actively trading MOASS, you're gonna want to be up from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day. For those of you that don't have access to after or pre-market trading, get it, because most brokerages it's blocked unless you kind of like sign an agreement that you're willing to take on the risk of trading in a low liquidity environment. But if your broker just absolutely doesn't offer it at all, there's nothing you can do, so don't worry about it. Just factor it in at the close of every day that, things could change overnight. They're not going to change so drastically that, you're going to like, it's not going to like go from like millions to zero in the span of, aftermarket and pre-market. But, it could drop like $1 million or something like that. If it's at 10, it might drop to 9 in pre-market. Which is just like, I mean, to be frank with you guys, not a big fucking deal. You said you want to keep the exit DD simple for smooth brands, but could you elaborate here what you would add if not explaining to a smooth brand? I might have dived like a little deeper into, what pennant type formations that you could see, their breakout potential based on like high volatility back testing. I would have probably gone a little bit more into like how to analyze like the long-term trend of the peaks, stuff like that. But ultimately, I in the end I had a lot of that written. I didn't feel it was necessary, uh, because it doesn't really matter that much. It's not gonna like improve your price, like your sell points over the basic exit DD more than like 1 or 2%. Um, and in the interest of keeping it simple and accessible to people who'd never done this shit before, this is like I wrote that before I ever started streaming, right? Um, and so yeah, in the interest of keeping it simple, I kept that out because it really didn't make that much of a difference. So yeah, are there things you could do? Like I've described some other things where like, if you're not filling, because even though I don't tell people to use stop limits in the exit DD specifically, I do say that there is a place for every order type. If you're only using stop limits and the price is only climbing, you're never gonna fill, right? Um, and on the off chance that it does plateau for a very brief period and then drops, um, you wouldn't have filled any orders on this side of the peak. You would have only filled in here, and so you may be end up with more position here than would be desirable. And so after a few failed stop limits, it's probably good to put in like an actual order and commit to a real sell, um, because you do want to not have a lot of position left on that downside. I think the biggest mistakes will be people's unfamiliarity with setting orders, and not setting them quickly. I think the other biggest mistake people will make is not using market and stop losses when they need to be. There are places for these in MOASS. They just happen to be on the opposite side. Or market orders during volatility spikes. So if it peaks really hard at one point, and like we get a lot of like a big wick, like giant volatility candle, this is like an opportunity to actually sell like a market order, because you might fill crazy fucking high, right? Like you might fill well over the price of the trading peak. Like, and you would just do that with like single shares, right? Like one share during that moment. But ultimately still kind of irrelevant, I think. That's more just like trying to absolutely maximize every dollar you could get out of it. Um, Let me think. Is there anything else? Not understanding when forced liquidation has become, getting nervous and selling. Most of the mistakes that are going to be made during MOASS are going to be psychological. Um, that amount of money represents, big impacts on people's psychological state. And I think a lot of people aren't really equipped, even with all these months of doing this, aren't really equipped for it. And look how excited everyone got when we ran up $50. Like, it was a fun day, but ultimately not a very big deal, right? What's your ratio of puts to calls? How far out of the money would the puts be? I'm probably going $5 out on either side of whatever price it looks like we're gonna enter earnings at, right? Um, I'll probably go like 5 to 10 outside of the strike. Maybe I'll do a spread on either side. Um, and then what was the other half of that question? I don't know how many contracts I'll buy. It just depends on how much they cost. If we run hard, the volatility may be really high, so I may not be buying that many. If you were a short hedge fund, what would be your strategy this week? Try to drive the price as much in after hours and pre-market as possible, and then drive it back down during the day. But I think they have too much to cover in too short of a period of time to pull that off. You need weeks and weeks and weeks to do that, and they have a couple days. So, I don't know. I guess I'd be submitting my resume to some other employers. Is the RRP total related to Jimmy? Not in any way I can discern. If it is asked, what would be the positives and negatives of GameStop completing a stock split? Thanks. Okay, so the positives are obvious: liquidity, cheaper entry price, uh, pre-split interest. All of these things are pretty relevant. The negatives, the negatives are a little harder to describe. The negatives have to do with psychology. You know, if your position goes from like 25 shares to 100, you know, and then the price goes up, maybe you're willing to part with a few, right? Because your initial position was only 25, right? People don't, larger numbers change people's psychology, right? Like, I'd go, like if you have like 4x and you split, right? And now you're suddenly a 5x holder, you feel like you can play a lot more with those numbers, right? Whereas like this was just solid holding. Increasing the size of the float does that, right? Like that's kind of something we see over on AMC, is there's like that buy and hold mentality is not nearly as strong because people have so many shares. People are selling covered calls, they're making money off the shares they have, while the stock does nothing. And so yeah, a lot of psychology plays into that. Um, and by people selling, obviously that relieves pressure on short positions. So that would be the negative. Although I think with GameStop, the buy and hold mentality is strong enough that we wouldn't see nearly as much of that go on. The other risk is that it opens a door for hostile takeover. Do the quarterly cycles amplify other existing cycles expirations? Yes. But that's getting kind of too much into the stuff I'm still researching. But yes, they do. Is it fair to say 400 is likely forced liquidation territory? Not necessarily. Yeah, I know you guys can't trade the pre-market. I know some people can't. Fidelity pre-market opens at 7:30. Not sure. I think you can trade from before. You might have Fidelity has like a waiver for it. I remember I had to sign something to like trade in the pre-market on Fidelity. Maybe it's only 7 a.m. I don't know. I don't really trade the pre-market on that like on ATP, but it might be. Look into it. That's like Windmill Willie's thing. He's all into fucking digging into every product Fidelity has to offer. Are you feeling more comfortable using prices like 10 million, or is it more so no one accuses you of shilling? I mean, I've never really cared about anybody accusing me of shilling, right? Like, obviously, based on the things I've said. um, but no, I mean, I've always thought that 10 million is possible. It's just not something I want to promise people because, like, I understand that a lot of people aren't going to make it there. Like, I think the stock will hit it, but I don't think a lot of people will still be around for that, right? That is 1 a.m. for the West Coasters. Trading on the West Coast was one of the worst experiences of my life. What are the chances that during most brokers would just prevent people from trading GameStop, like during the January run up? That's like a one-time thing. You get away with that shit once. You're not going to do it twice. Robinhood might cut off buying because of their user agreements, but traditional brokerages aren't going to do that. Even WeBull's not going to cut off buying, right? WeBull's tied to like a massive bank. They're not going to take that kind of risk. Um, Robinhood only did it because their terms of service allowed them to get away with it. Because they're technically like they're kind of in between software and a brokerage. And I mean, they're still going to get sued for it and probably still get in trouble for it, but I don't think there's a lot of precedent there yet. So that'll be like, kind of like a landmark case when it does go to trial, if one does. If it didn't go to at least 1 million a share, I would be surprised. But I mean, if it didn't, if it didn't get to 1 million a share, the exit DD prepares you for that eventuality as well, right? That would mean that there is something flawed fundamentally with the thesis, um, and that we were wrong about something, either the short interest or something non-transparent that there was no way of finding out, right? That's the only way it doesn't go that high. And I think based on the circumstantial evidence we have, that we have enough of that to be, to have a lot of conviction in the idea that the float or the short interest is that high. So I feel comfortable thinking it will go over 1 million. I would be very surprised if it didn't. But the exit DD does, prepare you for whatever it does get to if it doesn't get that high. It's another reason I left prices out, because they are ultimately irrelevant. I have 15-ish exit points for the squeeze. Does that sound reasonable or too much? Okay, again, Visceral, if you watch the spurt video that I did, that can be adjusted on the fly based on the action the price is taking. So like when I was doing the imaginary selling of a spurt position during the course of its run up, I increased the aggressiveness of my exit as the price started to dip. And in the same way, you can pull back and make it more conservative if the price continues to go up. Submitting my resume to Starbucks. I like to ask tricky questions. It helps me have a better idea of what to do or experience a never experienced before moment. Good. Clip. $202,500,000. I convinced myself it wasn't 202,500. Very bullish dream for this week. Sorry, exit price points. Oh, I don't know. You may see all of them. You may not. You may not even be able to sell. I don't like tying it to price for kind of. There's a lot of reasons, but one of them is like you may try to sell at a price and just not fill, right? And then your plans kind of got holes in it, right? And that's how like your plan falls apart, I think. Is like, say you're like, okay, I'm gonna sell 10 shares at 100,000 no matter what, right? And then you're like, oh, I'm gonna sell 10 at 250,000, and I'm gonna sell 10 at 500,000, and then I'm gonna sell 10 at 750, and so on, right? And then you try to sell these 10 at 100, and it like your order doesn't fill, right? And it carries up to like 350, and then it's like, do you sell 20 now? Right? And now parts of your plan that you've built have started to fall apart, right? And which means in the really psychologically stressful moments of this, you're not going to have faith in the plan that you've created, right? And that's bad. That puts you in, a weak position going into this. If I gift my friend shares and he gives me shares, do we have to pay taxes for those shares based on the value that they sell or the value they were gifted at? I don't know. I'm not a CPA. I think you have a gift. I think it's the value they're gifted at, not the value they're sold at. It's their market value when they're exchanged. But I think the IRS has a cutoff per year for how much, or how much constitutes a gift, and anything like over that is taxable. Do you expect penance to form before we hit 98% SI? They could. And that's why we don't exit all our position at once, right? Because say if it's running up and, there's some sort of stall or they're switching computer systems and we get a pennant that forms after a halt, right? You have your limit cells to protect you from this, but say then it goes up and then it goes up again and then the peaks are actually up here, right? First of all, if you break up your position, you don't have to worry about losing 20% here because in the peaks, you still have 80% of your position left, right? Additionally, if you stop limits or act as your own stop, and it breaks up, you're not going to place an order at all, so it doesn't matter, right? There's a lot of ways to, and for people that only have market orders, you've only lost 20% of your position. You can trade certain securities. They mean like Forex and futures and shit like that. They're not talking about GameStop. Crypto. GameStop will only trade during tradable market hours. There's no exceptions to that. T212 will shut it down so fast. How many days will we be trading in the peaks? Hard to say. I think 1 or 2. But maybe a few. It could be longer. It depends on how extensive the share lockup is. Oh yeah, Windmill Willie. Do you want to go dig into like the earliest tradable time on Fidelity? Oh, there you go. So I guess if all your shares are in Fidelity, you might want to be watching the market on like WeBull. The link is down in the description. But you may just want to like, I mean, I guess Fidelity lets you trade after market though, so you'll be able to trade from 7 a.m. If that's the case, you'll be able to trade from 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. Eastern time. I thought Fidelity had like a thing that you can sign that allows you to trade earlier. Windmill. That was, I think, the confusion. Maybe it's with a higher options level. You said 1 minute chart is best used for peak MOASS. Do you think because of the crazy money we will have to constantly zoom out on the 1 minute to see the pennants work? I mean, the pennant should be the same no matter what the price is. You can confirm trends and stuff if the volume really dies off by using the 5 minute chart. But I mean, also you can lock your chart into like magnet mode and it will follow the stock instead of you having to like constantly scroll up. If I had October, I do have October and November calls, but they're already in the money. And so that'll be the primary difference, Rumpel. So my October and November calls are $40 and $60 strike. Um, if I had like 150s to 200s, like in the money, but not super deep, I might consider rolling them back into, if I could, into like a few more contracts. So if I had like 10 and I could roll those back into like 15, I might consider that for like additional leverage, but maintaining the same strike. If I was out of the money at those dates, I would consider rolling back and closer to the money. Unless you like your position out there is like an IV play, in which case I would be looking to just hold them and wait for a big run up. So if you're like way out of the money, like 650s or something like that, then you might as well just wait for a run up because your leverage is already significant because those options are super cheap, right? So yeah, that really depends on what of those positions that you might have, Rumpel. If Spurt becomes green, do shorts have to cover? Oh, gray. Yeah, they do. If it becomes delisted, they have to cover. So Spurt will run again. Its short interest is still like 60%. I just don't think right now. So you place an order at 100,000, for example, it doesn't fill because the price jumped. Do you have to cancel that order, or will it eventually? It depends on the type of order you placed, Christina. If you placed a stop limit, right, and the price runs up and doesn't fill, right, then you have to cancel this and move it up. If you place a market order, it'll just fill as soon as the stock, as soon as it can, right, the next available opportunity. And if you place a limit order, same thing. My mantra has been simple. What would be the worst than losing my current investment in GameStop, which I won't, or paper handing and having it MOASS the next day and hate myself forever? Biggest no brand ever. I cannot describe greatly enough how important it is to just hold. That's this cycle, these quarterly cycles, this price improvement, all of it. At every point, GameStop defies short logic, and the reason is because we hold, because we buy more and we don't sell. And if that fundamental thing changes, that gives the short hedge funds significantly more power over the stock. Yeah, you could write your strategy with if false statements. If you know, fuck, you can write like a algo to tell you what to do if you need to. But I mean, I've dug deep and I see no way to get to at them earlier than 7 a.m. Does windmill does fast allow you to trade before 7 a.m.? Once forced liquidation happens, won't we just rip to the peak? Possible, yeah. Like we said earlier, though, there could be gaps or delays. At which point I'd assume we'd just kind of trade sideways, maybe a little down, but I don't think there'll be a lot of trading. I think it'll just be like a hard halt, maybe an extended one, while they shift like the primary purchaser. But in the past, when I've seen hedge funds get liquidated, there's no delay. They're very efficient at doing that job. And they kind of have like, I'm not a programmer, so I don't know how to describe this, but the DTCC kind of has like master controls over that. Like they can just liquidate a hedge fund at a push of a button. It's just like, it's kind of like sell all assets. I heard when it's going up, market orders could place much lower than what the stock price has shown. So there's inherent risk of profit for market orders on the upward trend. Yeah, there is. And that's why I said like I would only sell like one at a time in there to just try to like catch that peak of volatility. I mean, you have to remember that the downside isn't going to be like $200. It's not like you're going to sell a market order at 10 million and it's going to fill at 200, right? But yeah, there is downside risk, and that's why I wouldn't move any significant part of my position that way. But again, that's just like a little thing to do that you could like tweak your total earnings with. I think people will be passing out when the price increases over 100. I don't know. Adrenaline's a hell of a drug. People might die after or pass out after. Yeah, I know. Thinkorswim also allows full PM trading. I think Schwab does as well. Although I've never used it because I hate waking up that early. But I'm pretty sure they have it. Usually if I trade the pre-market, I don't do it till after like 8 o'clock because that's when the volume starts to pick up. So like 8 to 9:30 is the time I would generally trade the pre-market in. If I sell my whole position at 10 million at my paper hand, what kind of improvement could be expected? I mean, if you can get it to all fill at that point, I mean, and that's enough money for you. Like, no one here is to like can comment on that, right? Like, you sold in the peaks, you did the right thing. That doesn't make you a paper hand. If you sell at 10,000 and it goes to 10 million, yeah, you're a paper hand. But what other forced liquidations have you seen? Archegos recently. I've seen them occur on OTC stocks, smaller hedge funds that trade pink sheets. You'll see them get forced liquidated on occasion. Um, it's abrupt. But when it happens, it's awesome. You're on the right side of it. Remember, guys, there's probably time to like walk away and breathe, ground yourself. Try just focus on the moment. Don't think about what's going to come or what that money means. It's just numbers, right? You should only be focused on getting a high score. It's a video game after all. For those of you that play video games, think of the level of commitment that you would put into like beating a level or like a boss that you've had to try to do 10 or 20 times before getting it right. That's that same kind of like edge of your seat determination. That's what you should like focus on trying to achieve during MOASS. The rewards will come on their own, and you can realize those when it's done. What do you think about the fire sale filing getting moved? Does that indicate that we should be expecting MOASS till after it comes into effect? Which filing is this, Abel? How did end the money options work at day of expiry? I mean, they'll auto exercise them for you. I know WeBull tries to close at 3 p.m. If I don't have cash to buy to close, do you have to exercise that Friday or can it go Monday, Tuesday? I think you have T+2 to fund the exercise, Holy Saber, but I would get in touch with their customer service and ask them. They may cashless exercise. I have never exercised an option on Webull, so I cannot be sure, but they may do a cashless exercise. I think Robinhood does. For anyone with Schwab, you have to click pre and post market trades. Oh, for pre and post market trades, you have to click a checkbox. Yeah, I mean, most brokerages require that. See you later, Chris. Do you have a strategy on moving the large amounts of cash out of your brokerage? Open large accounts, get a bank to open special accounts. I mean, I have like a Fidelity credit card. I have a Fidelity debit card. I'm sure I won't be moving my money privately right away. I mean, some of it, but not a lot. And you know, I'll be moving portions of it into like private banking and stuff like that for long term holding until I reinvest it. Some of it will get reinvested probably immediately. So it's hard to say. But yeah, I mean, speak with your banker. You know, find out what they have to offer you. I'm not concerned about like Fidelity going under or anything like that as cash is moved out. Right, those trades are funded, so it's for a little while. I have a feeling that Fidelity is going to be the biggest bank in the world by like a magnitude of 10. Like, you can give 15K annually without reporting to the IRS. Above 15K, you have to file a gift tax return, but you still don't pay gift tax until you gift over 11.58 million. Okay, there you go. And as a tax paralegal, are you aware if equity assets are gifted on their market value at the time or on their sell value? Is that something you're aware of? I think it's at the time they're gifted. Yeah, a personal high score, not a speculative competitive high score. We've been grinding through Dark Souls Citadel since January. I will absolutely die, no question. I would stick to the 1 minute dilly, but you could watch, like, after your orders and everything are placed, you could watch the 1 second to see if you can like confirm the breakdown or not. But it's pretty much worthless. It moves too fast, especially in MOASS. It'll move way too fast. Thank you. If this is the last weekend, you got it, man. Stay handsome. Like, could I be anything else? Bristow. So when I speak to my bank, my advisor pre-MOASS, and they buy into Jimmy because they understand the shorts I haven't covered, who will I use as my banker and advisor post-MOASS? That's a good question. Maybe just don't mention GameStop. Just say, you know, you're expecting a large amount of money to come into your possession in the near future, and you know, what's the best plan for storing that money safely, and making sure that it's insured. And I know FDIC only covers $250,000 per institution per depositor, but there's private banking insurance that can cover values far in excess of that. They'll insure your fucking money, essentially, is what I'm saying. Like, I know Chase Private Client has accounts that go up to like 50 million, where they'll, you know, it's insured. I'm assuming I'll need heart medication afterwards. No problem, VWAPs here. This isn't over, by the way. We've got like 25 more minutes. Everyone's I feel like everyone's bailing on me already. Ask me more questions. Can you stay for like 5 halts? It's going to be so boring. Not for me. You got to remember that every dollar this stock goes up, I make like more than the average American salary for the year. So I'm going to be like fucking jacked to the tits the whole time. I'm going to have to take my shirt off because I'm going to get all hot. I can't be on stream while that's happening. Stock avocados and keep the cholesterol down for MOASS. A charity you like so I can thank you indirectly post MOASS. I don't like any charities, Cat Talk. You can thank me monetarily or just by getting rich. Both of those things would make me proud. I think like I know I set up that like membership for like Pontiff of VWAP or whatever. I'm gonna if that plays out, I'm gonna take that money and put it forward to some sort of charitable cause. I'm not sure what yet, but I have a couple plans. Or just keep your fucking money. Donate to a charity you like. I don't care. I'd like to advertise my home decorator service for you post-mass billionaires that have more mansion than you can furnish. I'll keep that in mind. Some for Thick Boy. What would be the next time frame of highest probability as you may view it based on your personal knowledge? That depends. That ask me that question next weekend, Eddie, if we're here. NSCC 2021 DM it to me, Abel, if you can. If you have it like available, just screenshot it or something and DM it to me. I'm sure I've read it. I just can't remember which one it is. Proof or ban. Gordon Ramsay, Morton's, Ruth Chris, or Fogo de Chao. Which do you choose? Like for today? Man, Ruth Chris just nails their sear. I'll give him that. How long can you see pennants forming? Usually pennants are like 5 to 10 candles. So 5 to 10 minutes to form a pennant. They can form faster or a little slower, but not much within that range. Otherwise, it's just like you're trading flat and you broke out to the front side. Don't worry, time will go by real fast during MOASS. You won't even notice. I thought you were going to go to the NYSE and scream time to make some money, boys. No, that's Fidelity. I'm going to go to the Fidelity office around the corner from my house if the internet goes down. Is there any way for these institutions that are putting the gamma ramp in place to get blamed? No. No, they're buying a long position expecting earnings, right? It's a perfectly viable strategy. Definitely approved by analysts. Excellent way to squeeze the shorts. It talks about market-wide protection. Can you not DM it to me? All right, I'll look it up myself. I think I know which one you're talking about, but NSC 2021-10. this one. Oh, fuck me, what I do with it? What the fuck's the rule? No. How is that? Oh, damn it. Establish new membership categories, requirements for sponsoring members, sponsor members, or by existing members. This is just a new membership proposal. I'll have to look into it more. Abel. Well, I like the single mom housing thing because I was raised by a single mom and it was not easy for her. So that's kind of why that's something I want to do. What's the search term to find this private bank insurance? Just go talk to Chase Private Client or whatever it's called. Sapphire Service. I can't remember the name of it. For here, bullish. Well, it depends on how fast I have to bid everyone goodbye, damage it. Thanks, Jean-Claude Van Damme. You too, man. Top hat and monocle. When would you make a decision whether to put a straddle or not? Any announcements from RC would come during earnings, at which point it'll be too late to do damage control, right? That's correct. I would straddle going into earnings, not after. Put it on dark mode, invert it. If Citadel owns the float Sears, can they artificially increase the stock price a few cents to increase the value, thus meet margin requirements? Okay, they don't own the float of Sears. Jesus fucking Christ. Is Sears even on Citadel's 13F? Why can't anybody just dig into the basics of this shit first? 220C for 917. I held, but probably should have rolled. 917 is a lot of time. That's like a couple of weeks. You're not losing too much money to theta. Maybe like 20 bucks a day or something. I also have 210C for 10-1. Thoughts or rolling? I mean, the only thing I would do with those is like roll them up, maybe out and up, or just up. If I could get more leverage. But other than that, I just like leave them alone. They're probably fine. It's a lot of time. I wouldn't consider really rolling them till like maybe 2 weeks before expiry. Which I guess the 917s are approaching, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'd do much with those. New sponsor members that aren't part of the DTCC can bid on assets of liquidated funds to protect the market from collapse from write-ups. Okay, so they've always been able to do that, Holy Saber. It's usually it goes to like a liquidation market and it takes some time. So all they're doing is they're just accelerating the rate at which hedge funds can cannibalize each other. That's all. Why spy halted? Are we gonna have one last hurrah for the memories post mass? If Carl puts on a dress and sings Conga by Gloria Stefan, then yeah, we'll have another stream. One more stream. You feel there's another big price instigator? There could be one more thing slightly before the 17th that could have a factor, but I don't know how big of one. A lot of people don't know the basics to dig into. That's fair. But like, yeah, start there. Does 13 like does Citadel hold 13F? Sears on their 13F. Does Susquehanna? Does 0.72? If the answer to that is no, then you're starting. It's starting to look. Does Melvin? You're starting to look like it's very highly unlikely that they have any association with the movement on Sears or Blockbuster, right? And let me tell you, it's not because they're in a fucking swap together, because Blockbuster went out of business years before short positions even started on GameStop. So if those were in a swap that was being traded about, you know, in some obscure futures market, like GameStop wouldn't be packaged with it, right? Value at the time of the gift. Thank you, Blue Sky. Yeah, so if your friend gives you shares or gifts you shares, it's the value at the time they're gifted, not the value with which they're sold. Can the stream just be you in a bathtub full of money, though? Maybe. Although, cash is a bitch to move around. So thanks for all your help. I'm stoked and feel fairly prepared for the rocket launch because of you, dude. I too come from a single mom and didn't have much. Let's fucking go. Fuck yeah, man. So yeah, one more stream because Carl will absolutely do that. Any suggestions for color or pickle themed designs? There's so many to choose from. Except for Stick Boy. I don't know. It's up to you. Whatever you feel, do that. Green. Lots of green. Store jeans size 50 waist with loops from the belt. That's what's tricky. That's what depends on earnings, Abel. So depending how earnings go, we may just end up in a position where this cycle isn't, a down cycle, right? This cycle, as far as I understand it, can invert itself. So if we run up, right, into earnings and we have good earnings, positive earnings with no shares released, we could just continue to run up after that. This is one of the reasons trading the earnings is so risky, because, we might not run right into MOASS post earnings, but we might run into a new type of trend that goes up as opposed to down. And we can already see that they're, slipping on their ability to suppress the price more and more as time goes on. I mean, they can't even push us below 200 anymore, and fuck did they try. If we go back here, and I showed you guys this on the weekly DD, these are the major price suppression points, all of which represent individual cycles of their own, besides these cycles, right? And these were those price suppression points this time around. And if you'll notice something about this, these are very, very different from the first time. Now you go one more cycle out, and these points could start to trend up. Like that. So this is actually a integral moment for GameStop moving forward. And that's why I've been so outspoken against Creand and, his even remote suggestion to possibly trade the stock. Even though I know he's spoken out about it, which I respect, but it may be a little too little too late. Greed is a hell of a motivator. Earnings numbers are done. They were locked in at the end of the quarter. So we're reporting last quarter's earnings now, not this quarter's earnings, essentially. I think positive earnings will bring in volume. Yeah. Positive earnings. If we have a positive EPS, it will definitely bring in volume. A lot. Like a lot of volume. I don't think we'll have positive EPS, but we could have significantly improved EPS, which is, for those of you guys that don't know, earnings per share. Any new guest speakers planned? I don't know. I don't feel that my interests are aligned with other YouTubers. Even Jamie. I know Jamie's bullish on GameStop, and but he's very much like a YouTuber. They're in it to promote themselves and their channels, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what they do, right? Like, that's their business. It's just not mine. And I feel like that puts me in a position where I'm like kind of promoting their business, and that's not something I really care to do or want to be involved with. So I don't know. And then out of the rest of the possible YouTube guests, I don't think anybody like collaborations with other YouTubers. I don't think anybody else is really informed enough for me to bother talking to. I'd like to pull in guests from outside of YouTube. I think that'd be really cool. But I don't really know how to go about doing that. And I've tried to reach out to Dave Lauer and I've heard nothing. I've tried to reach out to like a couple other people. There was this guy who gave a speech at Wharton a little while back on ETFs, and he's got like a press manager and shit, and so I can't really get in touch with him. Um, but I mean, we may not have to bide the time much longer anyway. Green with VWAP, that would be awesome. Is that why you're so hesitant to release your opinion on the cycles to limit people's greed intentions to trade this? I do think that my theory, incomplete, could paint a picture that would incentivize trading. Yes, it's almost. I guess I know this is going to sound conceited, but you guys are used to it by now. I feel almost that if I release it, it gives too much information, and people will see that information as guarantees without understanding what causes those cycles. Some will understand, but not enough, and that's kind of the problem. One of the problems. I mean, ultimately, I'm probably still going to release what I have when I feel it's complete enough anyway. But I mean, I kind of view, like, honestly, I kind of view YouTubers the same way that like the people who call me out on Reddit view YouTubers, right? Like, I don't fucking trust them at all. Which is, I understand the irony there. Ask Gary Gensler if I could call him Gare Bear. Haven't gotten a response yet, but bullish on my wooing skills. Good luck with that, Visceral. You never know. Maybe you'll ensnare his heart. Can much longer than anticipated. Yeah, it's possible. It could go on longer. I definitely see a possibility for that happening. I just think it's getting slimmer and slimmer. I think the rate at which we're approaching the potential for MOASS is increasing, much like theta decays on an option. The short hedge funds theta is decaying on this position. It's not important that most of us know that info, but it's really important to me to be right. Um, you have to weigh that against my own ego, which is massive. You think institutions will be holding for millions as well? Maybe some, but probably not most. Smaller ones, much like shareholders, like retail shareholders, the guys with the fewest will hold for the longest. I'm not sure when earnings is for on Wednesday. I'm pretty sure it's PM though. Probably PM, right? They're Central Texas, so yeah. Plans are in mission. He will be on the stream. He'll be mine. I quit my job on Friday, so I'm looking forward to spending more time on streams. Awesome. Yeah, YMA. Another spit take. I have a towel on my desk for this fucking stream. Earnings are Wednesday after market. Yeah, they should be because GameStop's Central Time, so I'd imagine that they would do them before close of business for the day. All right. We are now at 2:30, and I guess we're done here. What pickle will you draw when MOASS happens? I don't know. Wednesday after market. Okay, cool. Thanks for confirming. So GameStop earnings Wednesday after market. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. I will see you bright and early, as always, Tuesday morning. I appreciate all the support from you guys. You've all kept this channel going. Without you, I probably would have shut it down a while ago. So thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good night, guys, or day, or whatever time it is for you.